Are you a former gifted kid with an interest in intentional communities or homestead style living? Was the GATE program preparing you to have this interest? Let's investigate. Hi, my name's Alex and I'm a former GATE kid or gifted and talented kid, and I've been down this rabbit hole for the last couple of weeks. And on that journey, I've discovered many things that gifted kids have in common. I've also discovered a lot about the GATE program, the Stargate program, and its connections to various organizations like MK Ultra Programming and Pleiadians and Indigos and Bringers of the New Dawn, all sorts of connections. Everything from spiritual literature and spiritual theories and ET theories to government psyops and programs, etc. So if that sounds of interest to you, then I hope you'll stick with me, because I'm going to be making a lot of different connections that you probably wouldn't expect to see connected in this video. And we're going to cover a lot of conspiracy theories that have led me to believe this. So the first thing I want to start talking about is I was woken up this morning with some weird things running through my head. And I've talked about in previous videos how that time around 4 a.m. right between sleep and awake is when your brain is in different kind of brain waves, so you're more receptive to receiving information. And for me personally, I've always received my best downloads, so to speak, when I'm in this type of brainwave activity, or the space between sleeping and dreaming, or sleeping and awake. So anyways, this morning was slightly disturbing, if I'm being honest, because I was flooded with a bunch of ideas that had to do with homeland security and stuff that is going on in the USA right now. So I'm not claiming that anything that I'm saying is true, but I'm just going to touch on several theories that I've heard in the last handful of years, and kind of what led me to this idea that GATE kids could be the next generation of leaders for intentional communities. So I remembered a time when I heard a conspiracy theory that Obama wasn't born in the USA or something, so somehow they made an exception for him to be our president. And then if you've been watching the news, I'm not super invested in what's going on right now because I'm trying not to fall victim to the fear and propaganda, but I did see that Israel and Iran are kind of warring with the United States, and there's been talks of attacks on U.S. soil in major U.S. cities. And I've heard from other sources that these attacks have been planned on the inside. Again, running conspiracy theories, so just talking about these things to encourage conversations and the spread of ideas. But I've heard that what's going on overseas right now is an inside job, and then whatever happens in the U.S. after that may be blamed on what's going on overseas, but was really an inside job. I've also heard something about sleeper cells or something being activated, and I just think it's really odd, because on one hand, if the Obama thing was true, and also this other idea that, I mean, it's not an idea, the Obamas financed or produced or something, the movie Leave Everything Behind, which was kind of like a doomsday, the world just kind of stops and then everything's in chaos and all the elites escape off into helicopters to go wherever, and the electrical cars are all self-driving and piling up, and the world has descended into chaos. So I was thinking about that movie today. I was thinking about the conspiracy, or I don't even know if it's conspiracy or what, but whatever, that Obama was not born in the U.S., and the fact that they're saying that all of these, our borders have been open and all these sleeper cells could be hanging out among us, which they probably are. But it made me think of something that I've heard in our GATE group, that somebody brought up the other day that they remembered an exercise that we did as kids where we had to plan a new world or a new government. And I got, sorry, I got chills right now. This happens when I'm doing psychic readings. I get really crazy chills when it's a confirmation, or my version of confirmation. Anyways, I remember doing these exercises too, vaguely, where we created like a new government. I don't remember specifics about it, but I remember it sounded super familiar. Like, okay, I think we did that in social studies. Whether it was gifted, I don't know. That could have just been curriculum for US students and not necessarily targeted at gifted children. My theory, if there's any connection here, why gifted kids could have been targeted, maybe it's not so much for nefarious reasons. Maybe they were picking out people who would naturally have stronger survival skills and who were connected to spirit. And of course, there's a lot of theories floating around about the GATE program and how it was connected to Stargate. And then, of course, I'm thinking of the movie Stargate and other, things that I've heard about there being, the wars not being about oil, but rather who controls the stargates. And we've already talked to my channel about Bringers of the New Dawn and this theory that humans are made up of hybrid DNA from a bunch of different ET races. And there have been a lot of either children that were experimented on, including probably all the GATE kids or most of them, because why else would we have such vivid dreams about aliens? And those chills are coming back right now, but why else would we have dreams or memories of aliens? And then also so many gaps in our memory, period. I don't know about you guys, but like, is it normal to not remember your childhood? Like, what about, some people remember from the time they were infants and in their mother's womb. I don't remember like literally hardly anything from before 6 or 7 years old. I remember bits and pieces, but like not a lot. And so we made connections with the stuff that's going on in the US being an inside job. Now let's draw a connection to some popular movies and pop culture, and the fact that if you took any time to read that one article that I keep mentioning, the Illuminati formula to create undetectable mind control slaves, if you took the time to read that, which I always link in my description, you'll see that there's a lot of movies and shows that were used in programming. And there's a lot of substances, like entire pages of substances and pharmaceuticals that are listed there because of their effect on our minds. And then they're implanting these ideas in movies, probably to create certain timelines or to warn us about certain timelines so we develop the right psyche or skills that we need in order to fulfill their prophecies. Because if you look at a lot of the movies that have come out in the last year, like the movie Civil War and the movie Leave Everything Behind, two big ones, and the fact that we learned about the Civil War, the Nazis and the experimentation in the World War II, nuclear bombs about Hiroshima and all that stuff, like you're learning it as kids, like you're learning history. And obviously history was such a thing, but we're relearning it because they wanted history to repeat itself. Why else would the educational system want children to focus on all of these negative things? And I'm not saying we didn't learn positive things too, but I'm saying there was a lot of negativity. There was us trying to learn how to survive on the Oregon Trail in the elements. There was activities like trying to create a new government. There was everything else I just mentioned about what we were taught in our social studies and history programs. Now all that stuff is playing out in our movies that our consciousness is absorbing, but not to mention the fact that, again, I've mentioned between 0 and 7, your mind is extremely susceptible to programming. So why weren't we learning survival skills like how to grow our own food, how to meditate to keep your mind in peace all the time, how to work on our ESP, except, you could argue that some of the GATE or gifted kids were taught how to use ESP, and maybe that's because they were scouting spies to help during this time, or maybe they were training some of us. Maybe they were split us, and crazy chills again, maybe they split us into a couple groups for a reason. Maybe the ones who rebelled were meant to be the future leaders in this new kind of world, because it seems like, I'm not trying to say that bad things are going to happen here or that there's going to be a WAR or anything like that. And I've also heard from plenty of channels, and literally spiritual channels, like people who channel other intergalactic beings, and then literal YouTube channels where people said they, you know, the aliens or whatever else is in the galaxy, like, I think at this point, even though official full disclosure has not happened, I think most of us believe in aliens at this point. Not only has it been shoved in our faces on, you know, in movies and sci-fis, etc., I think inherently a person that believes that we don't have any kind of creator, I question their intelligence, because, yeah, like, it doesn't, I mean, at least I can't think of a logical reason, like, whoa, we just existed one day and there's no other creator and we just ended up here and we don't go anywhere where we die, even though all these people are having, like, OBEs and near-death experiences. Like, you can't ignore all that evidence. So, like, clearly something's going on. I think most of the population has accepted that ETs are real. And now we're just trying to kind of introduce that to society in a soft and gentle way without mass paranoia taking place. So it is my strong belief that there may be, and I'm not the only channel or person who has, you know, who thinks this, but there's a lot of people that believe we are going to have some kind of official contact that's, like, out in the open with the public about ETs. But all of that stuff is, like, seeping in to mainstream media anyways. I mean, people are talking about SRA on their YouTube channels. They're talking about vampires in New Orleans on TikTok. They're talking about literal demons and angels and plasma beings in the sky, and people are channeling Pleiadians and Arcturians. Like, there's all this crap going on. So that's a lot of stuff to process. And what's interesting, now I want to kind of sidetrack here and go over the astrology, because the astrology is also connected to all this. And ancient civilizations, since the beginning of time, have been paying attention to the stars and the maps of the universe through the stars. I've talked about human design and how the human design system talks about neutrinos that come from the sun and stars and planets and how they affect our DNA. They're passing through planetary bodies, and then they're light codes of information. Neutrinos are subatomic particles smaller than an atom, but they carry information. So when they're passing through these planets and the astrological bodies, and they're coming onto Earth's atmosphere, we are absorbing them. We're absorbing this consciousness. So that is why a lot of people are super affected by the transits. So when you have astrology with the outer planets that is happening right now with Neptune in Aries, the god of war, but also the god, like, the planet of leadership and taking action and initiating things in the very start of the zodiac year, like a zodiac reset. Then you've got Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries. Neptune is spiritual beliefs. It is either illusion, delusion, or fantasy, or spirituality. So there's always going to be a higher and a lower stream of consciousness or stream of energy that we can, you know, interpret that energy at, right? So the downside of Aries is, like, if you're not a conscious being in charge of your energy and you're just stuck in your reptilian brain, and you're literally going to be a person that's going to respond to your hurt ego and your hurt pride, and you're going to want to argue with everyone and believe that you're right, and then you're probably going to be one of, I'm sorry, trying not to get so passionate, but, like, one of the idiots on the front line who's just like, all right, let's just war against the neighbors because I don't know, I'm just a robot that's being programmed by what everybody else is trying to program me with, and I can't think for myself. But the higher energy of Aries is that it's going to create leaders within the community. And the other astrology that supports this is Uranus moving into Gemini soon. It's at the last degree points of Taurus right now. Taurus is what we have, what we own, what we've accumulated. So Taurus could be like the bank systems, the education systems, and not to mention Capricorn energy, which is Saturn, and then Saturn being in Aries. So Saturn is all the banking systems and education systems and any kind of top-down system. So and then all of those outer planets, like Uranus, which is the planet of shocking change and rebellion and technology, is at 29 degrees of Taurus. So that means that everything that's been everything that is happening right now, everything like that's going to happen, everything's coming to a head right now because 29 degree points is a crisis point. So it's preparing us to shift into Gemini, where people are going to have an awakening of the mind yet again. And then Gemini is all about communities and our literal brothers and sisters, or people we consider to be brothers and sisters. So this could be your chosen family, your chosen neighborhoods. And this could play out in a lot of different ways. I've been told, and like what I honestly feel in my gut, I don't believe that we will experience nuclear war, because I think that ETs at this point would interfere before that could happen. And I think that if you're a gifted kid and you're still with me at this point, you've probably been visited by some of these ETs in your brain, or what you assume to be ET technology or spirit guides, unless you believe that it's like transmissions that are just coming from the government or something. I don't know. But I honestly am starting to believe that some of the transmissions that we're getting, like they seem to be coming from something otherworldly. Because if you have gifts of remote viewing or strong intuition and a strong active dream world, like for a fact you've been protected through a lot of this stuff. If your journey has been anything like mine, you've been met with some serious resistance from people who don't want you to speak your truth, who don't want you out there shining or having any platform. But look where I am right now. Look where you are right now. Look what's happening right now. Now is the time that we're meant to be seen. A lot of us, starseeds or indigos, light workers, gifted kids, we're, call it what you want. We're people who have a sixth sense. Leaders of the new earth is another thing that you could call us. People who think for themselves, people who have an open mind, people who have experience with ESP and your psychic senses, your sensitivity, highly sensitive person, all of that stuff is developed. You also may have neurodivergence, like ADHD, anxiety. Those are survival skills. Those will keep you alive. So if something bad happens, I don't think it's going to be nuclear stuff, like I said. At least I'm praying not. And I think that also has to do with our collective consciousness. I just made a video about doomsday dreams, how some of those dreams that we're having that are very vivid could be timeline collapses, because in other simulations or timelines, they could have had that, which could have created, this wormhole or whatever reality or simulation or Mandela effect that we're in right now. Like, for all we know, that reaction already happened and the ETs are here, or we're sent back in time to fix what mistakes humanity made in the past. So that's, one idea or one way to look at it. But that being said, there still may be some unrest, and all the astrology is pointing towards, you have people talking about the New World Order, which is one world government. All the natural leaders, which probably already secretly meet together anyways to control what's happening on Earth. So there's probably, already a shadow kind of one world order. But it's that idea against all of the people waking up right now. So if you get out there and you go with your neighbors and you're starting your own homestead or community or animal sanctuary, which I am, by the way, so let me know if you want me to make a video about my animal sanctuary, because I'm probably going to make a video soon about a day in the life of my animal sanctuary. You saw my dogs at the beginning, and I started a nonprofit last year called Freedom for Strays. Strays being stray dogs and stray humans, to meet in some kind of place where we're going to have, my vision is to have land and to rescue dogs and get them out of the shelter systems, which are like horrible conditions for dogs. Big dogs shouldn't be in a cage all day, nor should they just be, there's so much medicine that they go through that severely shortens the lifespan of these dogs, and then it perpetuates the problem of people having a bias against shelter dogs because they don't want a dog that's been over-vaccinated and over-medicated because they know it's going to be more veterinary bills in the future. But then they're going to breeders who are perpetuating this problem, and then what are we going to do about the shelter dogs? Like, I'm super passionate about that, because until I saw that strays, like, we have such a bad problem with them, and it's such a hard job to keep up with. Like, people a lot of people aren't willing to do it. So if you're a person that volunteers with animals and walks shelter dogs, bless your heart, because the shelter system literally depends on you. If you're a person that donates, we literally depend on you. I have 4 rescues right now, but I can't have any more because of my HOA. So that is why I'm looking for a place to move off grid, or some place where we have a yard for these dogs to roam so they don't have to be in cages. I want to do a free roam sanctuary. Sorry, I got off topic there, but I am a gifted kid. I am, part of this wave of souls who feels like they have a mission. And I know that there's so many of you who are like me, who have visions for this type of place, whether that's an eco-village, a homestead, an animal sanctuary, but a place where people meet together. Everybody has their own job that they're in charge of. We are as self-sufficient as we can be, because we're learning as a population that we can't depend on these top-down organizations to make our food. I mean, there's so many problems that can happen. And if we ever have like a cyber, the internet goes out, like, what are you going to do? How am I going to get meat to feed my dogs? I don't know. Am I going to off a chicken myself? I don't think I could do that. I'd have to find a hunter. I'd have to find somebody who can do that. 'Cause maybe there's going to be a day where we can't rely on the grocery stores, and COVID kind of showed us that, right? So it implanted this idea in a lot of people's heads, like maybe homesteading or off-grid living is what we should be striving for as humanity. And again, the astrology is starting to reflect it, because Aries is a reset, Uranus and Taurus, and Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto's now in Aquarius, but when it was in Capricorn, it was also dismantling a lot of these top-down systems. So all this stuff that's coming up in the collective right now is to cause massive fear, because a lot of these people who have been in control don't want to lose that control, but they only have power if you give them power. And they can, I think at this point, we've also kind of like proven to ourselves, or like in one way or another, proven that there's entities or energies or organizations or whatever that feed off of our fear, because when you're in fear, you're easier to control. So my goal with my channel and everything I'm talking about is to raise your frequency, raise your consciousness, implant some ideas and seeds of consciousness in your head so you can think freely and see how a lot of these bigger pictures, things come together. And I don't know, I think we all feel something happening. So whether we're sensing intuitively the ETs are coming, alien disclosure is coming. I mean, the guy from the Pentagon wrote that one book, Imminent, disclosing UAF activity. So like, they are allowing whistleblowers and stuff to come forward. So we're obviously protected by something, or else you wouldn't be watching this video, and this video wouldn't be on here right now. So hopefully it stays up. But I'm just saying that something is supporting this transition, and it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, but there's a narrative out there that wants it to be doom and gloom, and it wants you to be afraid of this transition. There's a lot of astrology teachers and other, people who are in touch with like the Pleiadians or Arcturans or like different spiritual family, people who like download these ideas or whatever and have these streams of consciousness, that are feeling all the good energy that's coming through. We're feeling blocks that we've had for years be lifted. We're feeling all those spiritual attacks go null and void. They're not applicable anymore, because the energy is opening up and it's ready for us to move into a different way of living. And that's not to say that there's going to be old people who choose for the old systems to stay alive and weird stuff going on with the technology, but there's also a huge portion of us who want to do homestead style living and community living. And my theory, which I brought up in the beginning, is our gifted kids and gate kids were we being programmed with these desires because they were warning us or teaching us or whatever, or our souls were programmed to know what's coming. My other weird question is like, what did you want to be as a kid? I loved dogs. That's all I knew as a kid. Like, I was obsessed with dogs, and I don't know if I wanted to be a vet, but I wanted to like be a singer that had dogs. And what's so interesting now is I'm a musician that hasn't released a lot of my music. And I believe that I haven't been called to release it because the time wasn't right before, and enough people were not awake to be able to receive it in the way that I believe they will be able to receive it here soon. And I know a lot of other creators and musicians also feel this way. There's a lot of you probably that are watching this video and watching my channel who are brilliant, wonderful creative musicians who have been sitting on your music for years because something inside of you was telling you not to release it, or there was some kind of sidetrack or thing that caught you off guard that made you, not ready to release it yet. I also personally have made the decision I only want to release my music on YouTube because they'll at least help you get monetized and like pay for you. And I don't like how Spotify like makes more money than the people who have put their blood, sweat, tears, and heart and soul into the music. And everybody just has this idea, well, everybody's on Spotify, so I gotta do that if I want to be famous or if I want to be seen. It's not about, at least for me, it's not about fame, it's not about how many people see it, it's about who resonates with it. And if that's one person, that's one person. That's what the music is for. It's not so everybody likes you, because not everybody is gonna like you, and we at some point gotta deal with that, right? So anyways, what do you guys think? Are you on the train for the homestead lifestyle, the community living? Is that something you feel in your gut and soul? Do you think we are being prepared for this? Do you think disclosure is coming and they're helping us prepare for this transition? I've heard spiritual teachers like Bashar talk about how there's hybrid children out there. There's literally groups of people that believe they're part of this hybrid race where there's going to be hybrid alien children that have been living on a spaceship that are coming to Earth. We live in a time where there's so much information and there's groups of people that believe this or this or this or this or this or this. But my point is that it's time for us to connect with our tribe, which I believe the Gate Awakening is all about. All of this Gate kids who have felt isolated our whole lives, who have been in different cities and states, we've been isolated for a reason, because it's helping us build our spiritual stamina and overcome challenges in a way that we wouldn't have been able to overcome had we been alone. A lot of us are waking up again. Every time we connect with somebody, a new idea emerges. There's a lot of people who have already messaged me and said they're inspired to get sober now because of some of my videos. So I know that what I'm saying is important, and then if you're inspired by that and you go make your own channel, you go share it with other people, you share that seed of consciousness, and that's how we all awaken, and that's how we all create this new reality that we want to live in, and that's how we empower ourselves as the people. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think, and if you want to support my future sanctuary, I do have a GoFundMe set up. I need to contact lawyers or real estate people to help me find land where we can build what we want to build on there. So somebody to help me look at the building codes and all that to make sure that the land is set up the way that I want to set up the sanctuary and the spaces for the dogs, and then the people, and a place to host retreats and Airbnbs and stuff like that. So yeah, if that's something you want to check out, I'll put the link in my description as well. And stay tuned for another video, because I'd love for you guys to meet my dogs because I love them so much. Okay, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.